A best-selling author sits in his study, fingers stained with ink and blood. The story he's writing? It's not fiction. It's the step-by-step account of a murder only he could describe, because he committed it, and the woman whose story he stole was still missing. But what happened next shocked everyone. Ruth David, 34, an aspiring journalist from Bing, Washington. She was bright, meticulous, driven by truth like every great reporter before her. Then came Stephen Merrow, an acclaimed crime novelist who loved the spotlight and hated being questioned. Their paths crossed at a true crime convention in 2019. Within months, Ruth vanished. Her name faded from headlines. But Stephen's next novel? It read like her obituary. We post daily, subscribe so you never miss a case. Ruth David loved quiet places, the kind where you could hear your own thoughts. Her apartment overlooked the gray hills of Bing, Washington, a town that felt half asleep most days. She spent her nights at her small wooden desk, the glow of her laptop painting her face in soft blue light. On the walls hung clippings, maps, and strings of red yarn that traced connections only she could see. Ruth was chasing a story, one she believed could make her career or end it. The disappearances started small: a student, a waitress, a podcaster, all women who'd interviewed the same man, Stephen Merrow, a celebrated crime novelist with a gift for turning horror into art. Readers adored him. Critics called him the man who makes death poetic. But Ruth saw something darker. His novels described details never released to the public: wounds, locations, last words. Too specific to be imagination. She pitched the idea to her editor. What if he's not just writing about killers? What if he is one? The editor laughed, told her to stick to facts. Ruth didn't back down. She spent weeks studying Merrow's interviews, tracing his travel history, matching it to unsolved cases. Each connection tightened the knot around her gut. Then she got a message from Merrow himself. "I hear you're writing about me. Maybe you should come hear the real story." Ruth hesitated. Every instinct screamed no, but ambition whispered yes. This was her chance, the kind of scoop that defines a career. She told her sister she'd be fine. She even joked that if she didn't text by midnight, Merrow might have turned her into his next plot twist. They both laughed. That night she drove toward the lake. Fog curled across the road like smoke. The headlights caught flashes of trees, the shimmer of water. Somewhere out there, beyond the mist, was the man who'd made a living writing about death. Ruth parked, grabbed her recorder, and walked up to his cabin. The porch light flickered once. A shadow moved behind the curtain. She took a breath, hit record, and knocked on the door. It opened slowly, and from that moment on, Ruth David was never seen again. The night Ruth disappeared was colder than usual. The lake outside Stephen Merrow's cabin was still, like glass, the kind of silence that makes every sound feel louder. Somewhere an owl called once, then stopped. Ruth's recorder was running, tucked inside her coat pocket. The audio, later recovered, began with polite conversation, laughter, questions about writing, realism, and truth. But as the minutes passed, the tone changed. Merrow's voice grew sharp, possessive. He asked Ruth how it felt to live inside someone else's ending. She said she didn't understand. He told her she would. The chair scraped. A thud. Then a faint gasp. The next sound was water splashing, uneven, like something being dragged. And then, silence. The recording cut out at 10:42 p.m. 2 days later, Ruth's sister reported her missing. Police found her car parked on the dirt road leading to Merrow's cabin, keys still inside. The driver's seat was pushed too far back, like someone taller had moved it. In the back seat sat her open laptop bag, her notebook missing. Merrow told detectives Ruth had left after their interview, smiling, thanking him for his time. Said she'd even given him the idea for his next book. His demeanor was calm, rehearsed. When asked about the scratches on his forearm, he laughed. "Research accidents," he said. But investigators noticed inconsistencies. The cabin smelled faintly of bleach. A section of the wooden floor near the fireplace had been recently replaced. Behind the cabin, fresh dirt covered a shallow trench that looked recently filled. 3 days later, hikers found a small notebook partially burned in the woods behind Merrow's property. Inside were Ruth's notes. The last line read, "He's lying about the others." Public panic spread fast. Social media exploded with theories, fans defending him, critics calling him a monster. His publisher suspended all contracts. And then, in the middle of the chaos, Merrow uploaded a photo to his blog, a typewriter, a glass of red wine, and a caption, "Every story needs an ending." Hours later, police returned with a warrant. They lifted the grate of his fireplace. Beneath the ashes, forensic teams found something dark, small, and unmistakably human. The investigation had just begun. The morning after the discovery, police sealed off Stephen Merrow's cabin. Crime scene tape fluttered in the cold wind like warning ribbons. Inside, investigators combed through every inch. They cataloged ashes, fingerprints, stray hairs. But the real story, the one Ruth had died chasing, was still buried beneath layers of Merrow's charm and deception. Detective Evelyn Cross led the case. Sharp, relentless, and painfully aware that the evidence had to be perfect because Merrow wasn't just any suspect. He was famous, educated, articulate. He could twist words like weapons. In interviews, he smiled through every question, crafting answers like dialogue for a novel. Writers imagine horrors so the world doesn't have to live them, he said. But Evelyn wasn't buying it. When the forensic report came back, traces of blood beneath the fireplace matched Ruth David. Still, it wasn't enough. No body, no confession. But then, they found something strange in Merrow's study, a folder on his computer labeled Research Drafts. Inside were detailed timelines of Ruth's movements, her personal quotes, even GPS data from her social media. He'd been tracking her long before the interview. But then, an anonymous email arrived at the police department. Subject line: "He's done this before." Attached were photos of other missing women, each connected to past writing workshops, signings, or events attended by Merrow. Dates of their disappearances lined up perfectly with his book releases. Detectives followed the trail, cross-referencing phone pings, rental car logs, credit card purchases. Every new piece of data tied him tighter to at least 3 cold cases. His alibis fell apart one by one. When confronted, Merrow shrugged. "Writers collect experiences," he said. "You'd be amazed what people tell you when they think you're just taking notes." The public turned. Fans who once idolized him began burning his books online. True crime forums dissected every word he'd ever written, searching for hidden confessions. But even with mounting evidence, there was still one problem. Merrow's lawyer claimed the research files were fiction. Notes for a future novel. "Coincidences," he said, "inspired by real life." Then a fisherman dragged a rusted metal box from the lake behind Merrow's cabin. Inside were pages torn from a manuscript. The title read, "The Silent Reporter." And on the final page, the last line stopped mid-sentence. "She looks up one last time before." When the manuscript was pulled from that rusted box, the room fell silent. The pages were waterlogged, ink bleeding like veins across the paper. Yet the story was unmistakably Ruth's. Her words. Her final moments written from the killer's point of view. It was as if Merrow had documented her death before it even happened. Detectives brought him in again. This time, no cameras, no charm. Just fluorescent lights and the steady hum of a recorder. Evelyn Cross placed the manuscript in front of him. "You want to explain this?" she asked. Merrow leaned forward, studying the cover as if seeing it for the first time. "Beautiful," he whispered. "Almost finished." Forensic experts confirmed the typewriter used for the manuscript matched the one found in his study. His fingerprints pressed into the wet pages. The ash in his fireplace held traces of Ruth's DNA, microscopic bone fragments mixed with paper fibers from her burned notebook. The trial that followed gripped the nation. The defense painted Merrow as a misunderstood artist, a man consumed by his own imagination. But prosecutors exposed a chilling pattern: every novel released after a woman vanished, each one echoing a crime scene that had never made the news. When the verdict came, the courtroom air felt heavy. Guilty. First-degree murder. Life without parole. Merrow didn't blink. He smiled faintly as though the ending had been written all along. But the story didn't end there. Months after his sentencing, guards found another manuscript hidden in his cell. It detailed a killing that had occurred after his arrest, the victim's description eerily matching a woman who'd once interviewed him years before. The implication was terrifying. Was he working with someone else, or had he simply inspired another? Even now, detectives revisit his old drafts, searching for unseen clues, potential victims, hidden confessions buried in fiction. Each story feels less like a novel and more like evidence. Ruth's family still visits the lake each October. They say the water never stays calm, it ripples, like something beneath the surface is still restless. The truth, it seems, didn't end with Stephen Merrow. It might just be waiting for the next chapter to begin. Stephen Merrow wasn't just a murderer, he was an architect of control. His crimes weren't impulsive. They were composed, edited, and rewritten like drafts of a novel. Experts who studied his case described him as a narrative narcissist, someone who saw life as a story he alone had the right to finish. Every murder was an act of authorship, a way to prove that he could shape fate, even at its most final. For Marrow, victims weren't people. They were characters. He built them, studied them, and erased them when their stories no longer served him. This is a hallmark of psychopathy, layered with malignant creativity, an emotional void disguised by brilliance. He fed on admiration, manipulating readers and critics into worshipping the persona he'd written for himself. Ruth David's curiosity threatened that illusion. She saw through the fiction and in his twisted psychology that made her the perfect ending. Her death wasn't just a killing, it was a punctuation mark. Marrow didn't crave chaos. He craved authorship over life and death. And even behind bars, his stories continued to breathe, proving that for some minds, the hunger for control never truly ends. Ruth David wanted the truth. Stephen Marrow wanted to control it. In the end, her determination became the very story he tried to own, but it also exposed him. Her voice, her notes, her courage. They became the evidence that ended his illusion of genius. This case isn't just about murder. It's about the darkness that hides behind talent, and the danger of mistaking obsession for art. Ruth's story reminds us that monsters don't always wear masks. Sometimes they hold pens. Sometimes they smile on book covers. Marrow's books were pulled from shelves, but his words still linger online, dissected, debated, feared. Some say if you read closely, you can find hints of crimes we still haven't uncovered. So what do you think? Was Marrow a calculating killer, or a storyteller consumed by his own imagination? Let us know your theory in the comments below. And if you're still here, you're the kind of mind that craves answers. Subscribe and don't miss our next case, because on Behind the Crime, every story begins with truth and ends with something far darker.